Welcome to the Shock Your Potential podcast with your host, Michael Sherlock. We all have potential, but sometimes we need inspiration to get us to our peak performance. Whether you are starting out in your career, ready to move up the corporate ladder, or taking the leap into entrepreneurship, Michael's guests provide powerful tools and resources to shock your potential. Shock Your Potential is a global professional development training company committed to your unique journey. Learn more about us today at shockyourpotential.com. Listen in to today's expert.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Shock Your Potential. And as always, I am your host, Michael Sherlock. And all month long, during the month of April, when many of us in the United States are thinking about taxes, I thought it would be a great time to talk about money matters, or how much money matters for all of us. And my guest today has a great background and a great story. And I'm going to talk to him about, a little side trip he took in his career, but it's going to be very interesting. So my guest today is John Stoj. And after years of climbing the Wall Street corporate ladder, financial advisor, he was a financial advisor, I'm already tripping over my own words, he became disillusioned, get this, with false promises of outperforming the market, because we've all heard that from somebody at some point in time. Now, so at that point, when he became disillusioned, he started a sushi delivery company. And eventually he went back to his first love, financial planning. But this time he did things a little bit different. And his company, Verbatim Financial, he's gone rogue with his pricing model and is applying his decades of experience and personal touch to help clients simplify their financial lives, which is so important. And he believes sincerely that done well and delivered fairly, good financial advice is more valuable than its cost, and definitely worth buying. So I just want to take one little side trip, because I was so intrigued by this sushi company sideline here that he took. And so this is what I learned about it: that he built and sold Rolled Right, a successful provider of fresh quality, restaurant quality sushi. And when he did this, he handled all the interactions with state and local regulators, designed operations, hired and managed staff, and he grew his annual revenue from zero to almost 700,000 by the second full year. And some of his key wins included becoming the official sushi supplier, I think you'd need a button for that, to the University of Georgia, Georgia State University, Kennesaw State University, and almost every hospital in the Atlanta metro area. And in addition, he introduced sushi as a healthy food option to the students of the Atlanta public schools, which just blew me away. So John, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh my gosh, Michael, thank you for having me on and for such a fantastic introduction. I wish I felt as awesome as that sounded.
You know what? We write our bios and we're like, you kind of just put everything in there. And when you see it on one page, you're like, what? I have accomplished a lot. I am amazing. Why do I still wake up and look in the mirror and go, how many cups of coffee do I need to get through this day? Well, so I hit some of the highlights of your bio, which I think are fantastic. And I can't wait to talk a little bit more also about the sushi company. But, for what you're doing now, tell us a little bit more about you, your business, and how you help your clients to shock their potential.
Okay, sure. Well, you really did hit on a lot of it. The really high level intro is that I worked on Wall Street for 2 decades, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. But after a while, you start learning about sort of the underbelly of what you're doing. As they like to say in government, seeing how the sausage is made, you figure that out. You might figure out that you just love making money, and that's fine. But in my case, I started wondering, is this really what I should be doing with my life? And some of that came from being married to my wife, and she's a physician. And so she goes into work every day at the hospital and she helps people. She literally keeps them alive while they're having surgery. And so I know that she's so drawn to what she does, and she gets such a payoff mentally, emotionally, from that job. It's not monetary based for her, and for me, my jobs, they were fun, but they were monetary based, and so I wanted to do something different, or I wondered whether I should be doing something different, and frankly, it was the financial crisis that pushed me into doing something different, and it turned out to be that sushi business. So that was an adventure, that's for sure.
So, okay, so then I've got to ask you about this. So why sushi? Just
Uh,
because you're like, I love sushi, or because there was horrible sushi food and sushi options in the hospitals? Like, what prompted this?
well, that's a great question, and it's like most things, the answer is a lot more boring than it seems like it should be. I had a friend from business school who had a small sushi grab and go restaurant, and he was thinking of trying to how to figure out how to expand. And he was in Kansas City of all places doing sushi because his mom owned a sushi restaurant. This is how these things happen, right? You have to know
You're like, yeah, it makes
something in
sense.
order to get
Sushi in
involved in
Kansas
something
City.
strange like that. Um, and I said, well, okay, the government bailouts of the banks combined with the financial crisis has basically put me at least temporarily out of work. What should I do next? Here's this guy that I know, and I think he's got a neat idea. Let's see what we can do with it. And so that's how I came up with Rolled Right, was sort of my concept of delivering wholesale sushi. And there's a lot behind that. There's a lot of food safety regulations that you have to deal with, and then also, frankly, a lot of preconceived notions about what a delivered packaged sushi could be. And so, we often got the question, is this gas station sushi? How fresh could this possibly be? But the thing is, we made these products and we delivered them often within an hour of making them. So everything was fresh. It was fun. It was always good to bring samples to folks and see on their faces the surprise when they tasted it, and they say, "Wow, this actually does taste good."
Yeah. Well, and then what got you to the point where you could introduce this as something to the school system? Because that to me is fantastic.
Yeah, well, that was, some of it was a lucky bit of timing. It was a while ago, so Obama was still in office, and Michelle Obama was pushing forward the idea of having healthier options in schools. So it
Mhm.
sort of dovetailed with that really well, and it just started. Was me just dialing and trying to get involved and get in front of chefs who ran cafeterias, because that's mainly where we delivered. If you had an on-site cafeteria, we could offer the sushi as an option for clients there. And students have cafeterias, and so in the days of pre-COVID, at least, everybody
Yeah.
went to the cafeteria. So that's really how that happened, and that was a perfect example of be careful what you wish for, because I spoke to the head chef for Atlanta Public Schools for over a year,
Mhm.
talking with him about how to do it, and then I kind of figured the deal was completely over and done, not going to happen. And then he called me up I think it was in early summer, and he says, you know what, we're going to do this. And I said, oh, fantastic. And he said, okay, well, so we go back to school on August 18th, and I'm like, okay, great. He says, okay, and so on that day, I need you to deliver 60,000 pieces of sushi. And my jaw just dropped, and
You're like, wait, you're breaking up. You're breaking up. I can't hear you on the
exactly.
phone. I'll have to call you back after I pass out.
And so then obviously we went through a bit of a back to reality adjustment, and figured out how to do it. But it was again, if you're an entrepreneur, those are the types of phone calls that you get, and you have to be prepared for. You have to.
Yes.
When I talk to clients, when I'm talking about I talk about their investments, of course, at Verbatim, but I talk about their whole lives, their whole financial lives, and being ready for not only preparing for potentially bad things to happen and protecting yourself and whatnot, but also asking yourself the question, well, what would I do if something really good happened? Because a lot of times people get tripped up on that as well.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and it's really actually why I wanted to go, learn more about it, because part of the great portion of my followers on this podcast are entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in waiting. They're like they want to do it. They're maybe just haven't move their side hustle to their full-time hustle.
Right.
And I think it's a great example. It actually reminds me of something that I had going on a couple decades ago, where it dealt with fundraising. And when I was selling Avon, as kind of my side hustle, and then I was using it as a fundraising tool with DECA programs, and it was going well. And then, but you have to be prepared for an 8-week delay on payments. And all of a sudden, I had the opportunity of a lifetime that I couldn't fund, because I had an entire state school system say, we want you in every one of our schools. And I couldn't do it. I could not manage it. And it's interesting because right now, actually, it's something that I'm contemplating re-upping, because it was such a great opportunity to teach entrepreneurship and sales to high school students and really drive, opportunity for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm at the point where I can do those things again. And actually, we have many different companies that we're anticipating bringing in. But you're right, that it was like you dream big, and part of your head's always like, what if I fail? What if I fail? And I think we forget that sometimes you can win really big and you may not be ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
Or when it happens, you better go, okay, I'm not, I'm putting on the gloves. We're making the sausage right now.
Right.
Let's get going.
Yep. And so, and again, and I go through that because of my business ownership experience. I do have also clients that come to me who are business owners, or again, want to be. And so we'll talk a lot about that, and about managing cash flow, and having, working capital available for these opportunities. Because and depending on who you find yourself working with, like at the sushi company, we worked with large food service providers, like Sodexo's and Aramarks of the world. And they have, payment timing contracts, and you're either on a 45-day pay or a 30-day pay. And if you're a small company and you do a massive delivery, this is exactly what you're talking about. And then you have to outlay all the cash for the raw materials and labor, et cetera, and then you have to wait a month and a half before you're going to get paid. And as we know, all companies, they often pay late. And they're going to pay the small companies last. If they have a contract with Coke gets paid first.
Right.
If they have a contract with Rolled Right Sushi, a little tiny company in outside of Atlanta, Georgia, they're not worried.
When you're only providing 60 pieces of sushi a day, whatever.
Yeah. So it's something else, but yeah. And so that goes into, I think, one of the things that I talk about with folks is thinking about their exit strategies. And you think about your exit strategy early, not as a ripcord to pull when something's gone wrong, but how do I want to get out of it? And that's going to help you build whatever it is you need to build to be able to get out on your own terms. And this could be get out of a business. It could be getting out of a job that you might love, but at some point you might want to leave that job. At some point you might have to leave it. It could be, voluntarily, involuntarily, it doesn't matter. And so that's something that I focus on with folks as well.
Do you think that because you went from, Wall Street in 2 decades with that, you were becoming a little disillusioned, but you understood it, and, and then with a collapse, then being kind of forced, but, I think you enjoyed what you were doing with Rolled Right. But do you think that today, when your love, brought you back into this, and that you're working with individuals, and I know you work with a lot of entrepreneurs, do you think this really gives you a much better way to talk to people, because you've actually been in their shoes, and not only have you seen the job loss side, but then the pain and suffering and joys from entrepreneurship? Does that give you a different perspective today when you're working with people?
I mean, not to toot my own horn, but for sure it does. And it's things that I still get reminded all the time about, things that I never would have thought of before. It's one of these situations where, for the first, again, 2 decades plus of my career, nothing went wrong, basically. And if something seemed to go wrong, like I lost a job here and there, I always got a better job.
Yeah.
And so I never had to think about how to deal with adversity.
Mhm.
And that even was the case starting the sushi business. I just
Mhm.
assumed by now, because it would have been almost 10 years later, I assumed by now we would have had, multi-double digit $1 million company, or would have already sold it for immense riches.
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
and because I had never had any to deal with any adversity. But then I realized when you're in it and you're running a small business, you have to do everything. You have to deal with everything. So many issues are outside of your control.
Yeah.
And how you sort of react to those situations is really what determines what the outcome is going to be. And so
Mhm.
I realize that sometimes you do have to lay people off. Sometimes you can't
Yeah.
hire all the people you want. Sometimes you can't give out raises. A lot of times people are going to be mad at the boss.
Yeah.
These are things that and then I stepped back and I said, boy, oh boy, I gave my manager at such and such a bank such a hard time. I thought they didn't know what they were doing and blah, blah, blah. And no, it was a combination of I was young and overconfident, and they were struggling to deal with the pressures that they were dealing with.
Yeah.
And so now I can, sort of apply that and give my clients, the benefit of my experience, and basically just, I don't ever tell people what to do, or I don't even say this is what you should do. I just ask questions. And if you
Mm.
ask the right questions, in my opinion, people will come to the correct conclusion for them.
Mhm. That's the whole premise of my first book, which is called Tell Me More: How to Ask the Right Questions and Get the Most Out of Your Employees.
There
Because
you are.
if you say, tell me more enough times and they unpack the issue, then you can say, what do you think you should do? And 95% of the time, they have the right answer. And you go,
Hmm.
great, I agree. It builds their confidence. They do better the next time. So
Hmm.
I can see the same thing with your clients where, as you're asking them questions and learning about their goals and their, exit strategy and their pain points in their businesses or professional lives right now, that as you ask all those questions, really somebody is telling you everything that they want out of their financial planning relationship and their investment strategy. And then you can validate for them, which probably makes them feel like you're much more in tune with, what they really want to accomplish rather than what you want to accomplish.
Right. Yeah. But it's not about me. It shouldn't
Right.
be ever be about the planner or the advisor when somebody's in a relationship, financial relationship with someone. So yeah, you're right there with you for sure.
Yeah, and that was one of the lines I think in your bio, and I didn't read it, but talking about the differences with sometimes you can look at different people in the financial industry, and they really have goals, and those goals are tied to profitability for them, profitability for their company, and that's okay too, because I mean I'm comfortable with sales and that kind of environment, but I think when people are really sitting down with a financial planner, they want to know that your goals are their goals,
Hmm.
and when you can establish that, you gain so much more trust, and then the relationship just really flourishes.
Yeah, without a doubt. That is the goal. And frankly, that's why I founded my company the way I did, which is to eliminate as many, if not all, but as many of the conflicts of interest that
Mm.
often exist in the financial advisory arena. So Verbatim Financial is a flat fee uh, financial advisor. So I charge one fee that the customer knows exactly
Mhm.
what it is, and they know what they get for it.
Mhm.
The planning and the advisory, and it doesn't change because of the market does well. It doesn't go up. It doesn't grow over time for no apparent reason. And I don't sell anything. I don't sell any sort of commission products, so they never have to wonder. Like for instance, insurance is obviously a big portion of things in the financial services world because of people want to sell because it's profitable to sell it. Uh,
Mhm.
Insurance is part of your financial world usually, and when I talk to folks about it, they know that I'm giving them an honest opinion of what
Mhm.
they might want to do depending on their situation. And they know that I'm not selling any of it. So they don't have to wonder, well, geez, is he recommending this product because of the commission is higher than the other product?
Right, exactly. And I think that's ultimately what everybody wants to know is, are you really in this for me? And we are talking about all things financial, but also about the things that people, should be keeping in mind when they're working with a financial advisor. And part of that is, also try to understand what they can do to help themselves better manage money or better make their money work more better for them. So I've asked all my experts this month to help give us some top tips, so that my listeners and viewers can say, I know John just gave me some really good advice on what I can control. So, what are your thoughts on this subject?
Well, the easiest way to think about that, and use the word control, and I think that's good. The idea is that we should try to control the controllable,
Hmm.
and that part of doing that is recognizing what's not controllable. We, as individual investors, or especially as financial advisors or investment managers, we don't control the markets. We're not going to make your portfolio of investments go up in value. The markets do that. The global financial markets are going to do what they're going to do. We can't control whether there's going to be a pandemic, and so I think the idea is then again to pull back, keep it simple. One of my heroes, if you want to call it that, in the financial world is Jack Bogle, founder of Vanguard, and one of the things he said was, in investing, and this is in investing, you get what you don't pay for. The idea being, keep your fees as low as possible. Don't pay for things you don't need. Don't overpay for things for no reason. And so what I do and try to do for folks is to help them simplify. Basically, it's that simple. Because of it's funny, what you'll find is that, or what I find is that people, especially people who have had relationships with financial advisors, if they become clients and they bring me their portfolios, a lot of times, the biggest work that I do on that side of the business is untying the tangled web of funds and stocks and bonds, whatever that their other financial advisors have put them in, to give them this sense that they're doing something for them, and they're also creating unnecessary complexity for the clients, and all of it is often simply done to make the clients think that the advisor is doing something for them.
Yeah, so they're getting more value.
Right. They're getting more value by taking more money out of their accounts. The person getting the value there is the advisor. Let me tell you.
Exactly. And I think that, for a lot of people, it's daunting. I know I've shared many times, not just during this month's series, but with other guests I've had in the last 5 years, that, it's only been for me in the last 10 years where I have felt like I should be asking better questions, that I can ask better questions, that I don't worry about whether my question is a stupid question, or, and I'm 52 now. So it's pretty, frustrating to me to think that it took me till 42 to feel some confidence in asking the right questions. I mean, it is what it is. But I think that there's a lot of people that don't ask any questions because they don't want to appear stupid, or they just really don't know, or sometimes it's just easier just to let it go because it's not harming me. I am making money, but, so kind of don't upset the apple cart. When you have people that really don't have that much confidence in having these dialogues, how do you help them gain a little bit more confidence in that?
Well, part of that is going to be just an interpersonal relationship. I try to make people feel comfortable. I try not to be intimidating. I don't feel like I am. Like a lot of businesses, the more jargon you use, the less communication you're going to end up doing, right?
Yep, I agree.
And that's the beauty of it, is that you don't need all the jargon. Finance, especially on the personal finance side, it is pretty simple. It should be pretty simple. When you stop understanding what the other person, especially if it's, again, a financial services salesperson in front of you, if they're trying to tell you something and you can't understand it, it's probably not worth doing. The old napkin idea, that you should be able to put your plan right on the napkin and sketch it out, and it should be understandable to whoever you present it to, that totally applies in finance, because I know firsthand how Wall Street loves to add complexity to financial products, and every layer of complexity is another opportunity to take money out of clients' pockets. And I know that because that was my old career. I actually made some of the most financially complex products ever placed in the global financial marketplace. That was my job. I was a structurer of collateralized debt obligations. We don't need to go into that.
I won't have any good questions about that.
Exactly. Well, let's just say that those were part of the products that took down the whole basically financial arena 10 years ago.
Good job, John.
Thank you. And that was, again, one of the reasons why I'm like, this is just crazy. There's no reason for this. And I got out and had my experience in the sushi business, but then, we didn't touch on this, but to let people know why I did get back in it, I sold the sushi company because we had a son, and I was a stay-at-home dad for a little while. And when he got old enough, I decided, okay, I want to get back into finance. What can I do? How can I bring something to bear? And I'm not going to change the world. But if I can, help a few folks with their financial situations, then that's the goal.
I love it. It's great. And John, we'll have all your contact information on the show notes, but just in case somebody wants to look you up right now, because they're like, I think this guy is the one I've been looking for. What's the best way for them to find you and reach you?
Really, just to go to the company website, verbatimfinancial.com, and there's a button, reach out, and I'd love to hear from folks. I'll also put it out there that I do enjoy, and I hope people will tell from listening here, I enjoy answering questions. I don't mind answering a question or two. Nobody has to think that if they reach out to me, they're going to immediately get sold on becoming a client or anything like that. So this is something that I enjoy doing, and I hope to talk to as many people as I can about it.
Excellent. Well, and before we go, do you have any last words of wisdom or pearls of advice for my listeners and viewers?
I really think is go back to the only guaranteed money that you could put in your pocket is the money that you don't take out of your pocket in the first place. So ask the question, why am I paying for this? If a person is trying to sell me something or is telling me I should buy something, ask the question, well, how are they benefiting from it? How do you get paid? And that will help you, I think, especially in your financial world, keep a little more money in your own pocket for later.
I like it. I just wrote that down. That sounds like really sage advice. John, thank you so much for being my guest today. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thanks so much, Michael.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Shock Your Potential podcast. Learn more about us today at shockyourpotential.com, including details on Michael's 2 best-selling books. Tell me more, how to ask the right questions and get the most out of your employees, and sales mixology, why the most potent sales and customer experiences follow a recipe for success. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and like us today.